More than 1,300 rallies in all 50 states are taking place Saturday to protest the current administration's actions. WYFR reporter Alyssa Kelly attends the hands-off protest downtown Rockford, where hundreds of local residents look to send a clear message: hands off.
Sydney, residents, signs, car honks, and chants filled the streets downtown, many objecting administration policies like the Department of Government Efficiency, federal downsizing, tariffs, and immigration. That is the scene in downtown Rockford Saturday as hundreds protest the current administration's policies.
I think it's incredibly powerful to be here and to be united as a community to show that there's not just problems in Washington, D.C., but there's problems in Rockford, Illinois.
Hands Off is a national day of action taking place in all 50 states with a message to the administration that they do not consent to the destruction of the government and economy.
We have to keep our boots to the ground. We can't just be on social media. We have to have boots on the ground. We have to be in the streets. We have to take up the struggle. We must embrace the struggle, and we must protect the most vulnerable parts of our community.
Protesters tell me they are upset, and several mention the implementation of President Donald Trump's new tariffs.
This tariffs thing is really going to get a lot of people raised up. Don't just roll over and allow things to happen, because they will. It'll go south if you let it.
But on the other side of the aisle, officials say the protests are unfortunate, explaining changes need to happen in the federal government because it is running at a $2 trillion deficit.
And it's important to point out there is no cuts to Social Security, to Medicaid, to veterans. You know, those are just scare things that are going on.
Senator Dave Severson explains the government is cutting waste and fraud so programs like Social Security and Medicaid can continue fulfilling their duties.
There's going to have to be some painful cuts. Painful cuts means, eliminating jobs, not eliminating programs, but eliminating jobs. With the issue of tariffs, it's saying we have to start bringing our jobs back home.
Protest officials say the rallies will happen every 2 weeks, with the next one happening April 19th at 1 and the following happening on May 3rd.
Thank you, Alyssa. And in addition to hands-off protests, May Day 2025 will take place. That's another event protesting against the current administration.